Happy New Year! Welcome to 2022, and it's Gripe Session time. Today's special guest is none other than former New York Met and this year's 2-week commissioner of Mets Fantasy Camp, former Mets player Doug Flynn. Doug comes on the podcast today, and we talk a lot about baseball and, about that, trade that he was involved in. So without any further ado, let's get it.
It's Gripe Session time with your host, George Wanaka.
It's about nothing.
Discussing everything from real estate, current events, a little bit of everything, and the annoying little things that just tick you off.
You can't handle the truth.
What? You didn't know?
Here's your host, George Wanaka.
Your ass better call somebody.
Welcome, everyone, to the latest edition of the Gripe Session Podcast. Today, we have another special guest with us today. Obviously, as you've all been listening to and have watched on YouTube, you've seen I've got a lot of former players from Fantasy Camp come on to my podcast recently. They've been gracious with their time. Today is no different. Today, we are welcoming Doug Flynn to the podcast. Doug, tell everybody what's up.
George, just getting past Christmas, had a nice few days with my wonderful parents who are 94 years of age. And so one has dementia, one has Alzheimer's. So every day is kind of a new day. But it was wonderful that they're still around. So my wife and I are back kind of recouping from Mets Fantasy Camp, enjoying the holidays. And everything's wonderful. No complaints. The weather here in Kentucky is like 60 degrees. So when I finish with you, I think I'm going fishing.
That's it. Rub it in. 60 degrees. I'm ready to go play some golf now, but unfortunately it's a little cold and rainy here up in New York. But anyway, we definitely appreciate you coming on. Doug, if you can, do our listeners a favor, give them a little kind of brief synopsis on your career, how you got to, where you are. Obviously, talk about that trade that I think you were involved in, something along those lines. Yeah,
right.
Yes, from what I read, you were involved in a trade. But give our listeners a little information.
George, I'm a blessed person. I went to high school, played 3 sports, came out of high school, and got no scholarship offers. Ended up getting an opportunity to go to the University of Kentucky playing basketball and baseball, believe it or not. Started every game on the basketball team, won a leadership award. We had a really nice ball club. Was on the baseball team, but didn't get to play, primarily because there were better players. So I go to a junior college. After that, my second year, some friends wake me up one morning and said, we're going to all go try out for the Cincinnati Reds. Sounded good to me. So I borrowed a glove and I borrowed a pair of spikes. I went and tried out. The scout came to me and said, I want to see you one more time. Then he came to me and said, I want to see you one more time. Then he came to me and said, the 4th time, what would it take for you to be a professional ball player? And I said, Coke and a hot dog. And so I signed my first contract for $2,500, a signing bonus, and got a chance in 1972 to go to spring training with the Reds. And as I started to mature a little bit and progress, move up the ladder, 3 years later was in the major leagues with the Cincinnati Reds. And most people are familiar with the 75-76 team, which was pretty good. We won back-to-back World Championships. 1977, the season started. We got off to our typical slow start. And in June 15th, I was sitting on the bench minding my own business, and Pete Rose had heard through the dugout that I was one of the people traded for Tom Seaver. And so I ended up in New York in 1977, loved my time there, stayed 78, 79, 80, and then 81 was the strike year, which was a tough year for everybody, especially baseball fans. And then at the end of that year, I ended up getting traded along with Lee Mazzilli. Joe Torre was let go as well. Joe went to Atlanta. Lee and I went to Texas for a brief period of time. And then from there, I went to Montreal Expos for 4 years. And when I thought my career was over, Sparky Anderson called me and said, hey, you want to finish up with us? So I ended up spending the last couple of months with the Tigers and thought I was going to have a few more years in the big leagues, but collusion came and it got rid of a lot of players. So I came back home and started playing pro softball. And I worked with a program in the state 9 years. I headed up the state of Kentucky's anti-drug program. And 24 years ago, I started working at a local bank here in Lexington, it's marvelous. It's been just fabulous. The flexibility they give me, the benefits, and we have a really good bank too. So that's kind of where I am right now. I just turned 70.
God bless.
No, that's not true. I'm about to turn 71 in a couple of months. But I'm feeling great. I've been through a few things, but man, I'm just a blessed person, and I am happy right exactly where I am, George.
That's great. That's good. That's great to hear, and God bless you. So we're going to get back to Doug Flynn in just a real quick moment, but now it's just a word from our sponsor. And yes, I actually do have a sponsor, and well, it's me. My website is searchstatenisland.com. A lot of people know I am involved in real estate, not just in Staten Island, but if you're looking any place, wherever you hear this, I could probably hook you up with a really good realtor across the country, possibly even the world. So any questions regarding real estate, feel free to reach out to me on any of the social mediums that I'm on, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, etc. And again, if you found any value in any of these podcasts or even enjoyed them, I appreciate you thinking of me when you're thinking about real estate. Now let's get back to Doug. One of the things that obviously, we talk a lot about on this podcast a lot is fantasy camp, which is obviously where we met. The first couple of years, I didn't get to meet you, unfortunately, because you were only doing week one, but now that whole structure has now changed. Past year you did week one and week two. So, like everybody in week two really wants to know, week two is better than week one, isn't it? I mean, you can tell us. It's a secret. We'll leave that between us, right?
Not even close.
You
know what the difference is 1 week you have a lot of first timers that are there. And then the other week, you have more veterans that are there. And
yes.
Believe it or not, it is very different.
Yes.
I mean, New Yorkers are New Yorkers, but it's still very different from the guys who've been there and know the routines. They know all the practical jokes, as opposed to the guys where you can just continue to do it over and over and do these silly things that we get away with. And so I enjoy both of them.
I have no idea what you're talking about these silly pranks and things of that nature, but I will digress on that for a minute. What now that you've been a part of both weeks, let's talk a little bit about the camp, because we always kind of do that. And one of the things that I've spoken to pretty much most of the pros, and is when you were a player, if you knew about fantasy camp, would that be something as a current major leaguer that you would want to partake in? I mean, I've talked to Turk about it. Talked to Josh this year about it, Josh Tolley, and he said, you know what? He goes, even if, we came, or I was a current pro player and I came down for a couple of days, it's mind-boggling. I would have come down and done this thing every year. What's your feelings on that?
No, I feel exactly the same way. What amazes me is that the front office of both, I do 2 fantasy camps, do the Mets and I do the Reds. What amazes me is how the front office really doesn't want any of their present day players around you guys. And to me, that is one of the biggest compliments that you can ever get. Is I don't care. We have guys there that were superstars. We have guys that were just not superstars that just played in the game a long time. But it's a humbling experience when you see a camper that'll pay over $5,000 to come spend a week, listen to all your stories, do the training stuff we ask you to do, and then spend a week of fellowship. That's a humbling experience. So as a player, one of the cool things people ask me, they say, man, you played New York. You're a Midwest boy. You're from Kentucky. What was that like? I said, it was great. I said, if you keep your mouth shut and you play hard, you don't alibi when you make mistakes, the New York fans are going to treat you just fine. It's when you start making excuses, you start not hustling, you start doing crazy stuff off the field, then you can have a few issues with the fans. But I, as a player, would have loved to have come down and hung out with you guys. Well, some of you. My career would have still been important. I wouldn't want to have ended it right there. But because, that's fun. I mean, that's the way the game should be. But, right now we've had to move the camp to November, which we're still trying to see if that's going to be good. I hope it is. God bless Doug Dickey. Doug Dickey does an unreal job of putting this thing together.
100%.
And you have to have support from the front office, so in some way. And I'm hoping Lorraine and Jay Horowitz and some of the others. As a matter of fact, I actually wrote a letter to Mr. Cohen and just telling him the great job that was going on. And, you have 2 weeks of camp. You got 120 guys coming each week. These are season ticket holders. They buy all the souvenirs and all the memorabilia, and they come to the games. They go to the functions. They do the luncheons. This is a group of people. I mean, you have guys, as you know, George, some guys are CEOs of their own companies. Some guys have saved 4, 5, 6 years to try to come. Once you put that baseball uniform on, you become one. You become a team. Nothing is said about money. It's all about playing the game of baseball. And hopefully we're doing a good job of relaying that to the campers when they get there.
Yeah. It's we've talked about this for a couple years where, we call it fantasy camp, but we sometimes change that F and call it family camp, because at the end of the day, a lot of these campers become family. We talk all year long. I mean, on Christmas, as an example, this year I was drafted by Todd Pratt, with Ricky Bones, and Heath Bell was one of the other coaches. And we had a literally Christmas text message chain with my team from this year. And people are like, well, how is that? And I'm like, it's something that you could never, ever put a price on. I was supposed to be one and done initially my first year at camp 3 years ago. And now I just did my third, because to me, it's like, I have to do this every year until I can't do this anymore, because when I was growing up, as an example, Doc Gooden was on my wall, and with big poster. And as a kid, that's who it was. Now I literally, my daughter's boyfriend got me a framed Doc Gooden photo with his signature on it. I literally took a picture of it and sent it to Doc, and he started laughing. He goes, well, Merry Christmas. I'm like, well, yeah. So, and I'm like, well, how cool is that? Between able to text one of the guys you grew up watching, Doc, Hojo, and some of the other guys, and you sit back and go, well, I could just pick up the phone and call them if I want. Like, that's just, and they answer the call most of the time. So that's the other half of it, where it's like, okay, this is pretty cool. So Doug does just a phenomenal job. We're always lobbying Doug for that. Doug needs a raise. If anybody needs a raise, Doug Dickey needs a raise.
I agree.
So,
I agree 100%. But you hit on a point that's real important to those of us, like now that I'm commissioner, sort of, is you want the pro that's going to be there, that's going to interact with you guys. You don't want somebody that's going to just show up at the daytime, hesitant to sign autographs. You don't see them at nights. I'm really proud of the guys that were there, and Doug keeps bringing in, because they're sitting at the tables with you. They're telling you stories. They're going out after we get through at the ballpark. They're up in the morning. They're doing all those kind of things. And that, to me, was what makes the camp. You'd like to have all the superstars come down to all of these camps.
Sure.
One, they're not going to come because they're not getting paid enough. Two, they're not going to come because they really don't enjoy it that much. And that's why it's very important that when you do bring a pro in there, he gets it. And I think we're doing a really good job of getting the guys that do get it.
Yeah, no, 100%, 1,000%. So that's definitely one of obviously the biggest parts of camp, is that interaction and that stuff that goes on outside of the games and outside of, the team, dinners. We all go and hang out after the fact, and there's, Todd, or there's Lenny, or there's Rodney, or there's somebody, or Nelson, or, Mackey. People just sitting there drinking.
Look at you dropping names. You dropping.
This is what I do. I drop names every so often. This is what I got to do. But anyway, this is how I get my podcast out there. Is I just start name dropping. It's like, oh yeah, I call Doc. I call those people. It's amazing. Anyhow, I have a lot of kids that I have coached in the past, and that listen to my podcast, listen to my content, or watch my content. You said something earlier about that you were not, they felt that you didn't make your college team. Then you went to your JUCO college and you kind of walked on to that, and then ended up going to that tryout with the Reds and ended up playing a major league career with that. With all of the avenues for players nowadays, or kids, if you will, after Little League and travel ball and, all of the, showcases and things of that nature, what would you feel is the best way to kind of see these kids, or the best advice to give these kids? I mean, we get emails all the time on, as example, my son, come to this showcase in January or February, and all these college coaches are here, and et cetera. And I've had some conversations with Mackie and some of the guys on this in the past. What's your take on that?
Well, I have mixed emotions about all the travel ball stuff. I think you're kind of hurting some team. Like you have a couple of, say, a high school team that's trying to prepare and grow its guys and let them have some know each other and play together. And then all of a sudden you have a few of their players, they run off to a travel team. Well, you're taking away from that high school team, building up that team camaraderie and spirit and all those intangibles that it takes to have a really good ball club. But, for me, I was a late bloomer. But the one thing I never quit doing was playing. So even though I got cut from the college team, when I went to the junior college, I was still playing softball 3 nights a week and playing doubleheader baseball during the summer in an independent league that they had around here. So I continued to play. The wintertime, I loved basketball, so I played on the intramural team at the college. But I just continued to play and grow and mature and learn. I always played up too. When I was in Little League, for instance, as an 8-year-old, I was playing against 9, 10, 11, and 12s. And everybody says, you couldn't have done very good. No, I didn't. But I learned. And every year playing up and playing against guys better than me, then it was going to push me. Probably the best growing up year that I had, George, was the year I went to University of Kentucky and played freshman basketball. Because every day before our freshman team would scrimmage, we had to go scrimmage the varsity, which was ranked number 1 in the nation. They had Dan Issel, Mike Pratt, Larry Steele. They had a really good ball club, and they got beat by Jacksonville that year and had Artis Gilmore, which kept them from going to the national championship game. So, but I learned how to compete, and I think that helped me because when you were my size and you weren't a gifted athlete, and everybody says, wait a minute, you played 11 years in the big leagues, you had to be gifted. Well, a lot of that was just hours in the gym, working on how to get rid of the ball, turn a double play, how to be quicker, how to read hitters. There was a lot that went into it. So I think you're not going to learn that game by being in front of a computer, but you're going to learn it by being out there doing. And so I would encourage kids just to go play, find a game, find a field, go learn and play with guys that are a little bit better than you and listen to what they have to tell you. And then the day will come when someone's going to look you in the eye and go, do you ever think about doing something different? So until that day comes, keep pushing and trying to fulfill that dream. Good Lord, with the college instruction they have now, the ball fields, with social media, with videos, there's no excuse if you're a decent player that you don't get discovered by somebody. But what are they looking for now? Who knows about that? But all I know is if you keep playing and you keep somebody's going to check you out and they're going to watch you.
Well, I think and I didn't pay you to say, not in front of the computer, because that's what that's kind of the conversation these days. I'd say to my son, I said, you got workouts going on or what's going on? I was like, yeah, I'm going to do that in a little bit, Dad. I'm like, all right, that's good. But his travel program is pretty good. So,
there's a lot of travel programs that are really good. And I'm not, I wouldn't knock it. And we just didn't have it. But, there's when you're
I didn't have it when I was playing, when I was growing up. There was basically Babe Ruth. And then if you're good enough to play Pony, or, they wanted you to go play with them.
You were old enough to play Pony League?
That was it. Well, that's what they called it. They called it Pony or
was that 13 and 14 year old?
Yeah, that when you got to 14 or I don't know. They didn't call it travel like they do now. They called it something else, and I don't remember what it was.
Summer league. We had 13 and 14-year-old league too, where you played 16 games. Yeah. Not like these guys today that are playing 60. But I tell you one thing, I played football, basketball, and baseball. And every sport helped me for the other one. For instance, when I go through football practice and get knocked around a little bit, that helped me. So when it came time in basketball to take a charge, you didn't mind the contact.
Yep.
Right. So now by playing basketball, my legs were in really good shape when it came time for baseball season. And, you just learn. So, but you were playing, and I see guys that want to be specialized. You got to be very lucky and blessed, and all kinds of things have to happen for you to get drafted and then to make it and then to stay for any length of time. So, and the only time in your life you're going to be able to play all those sports is when you're in high school. So, why not? And I'm glad, but I had very, very good coaches as well.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that I've heard talked about and discussed, quite frankly, is a lot of the injuries that occur nowadays is because of the fact that people are more specialized, and one is like, pick a sport. And it's like, well, wait a second, like, I'm only training my muscles to do this. I'm not training them to do anything else, which doesn't get anything else stronger. So there's definitely some truths to that. So, but anyway, moving right along, what is your current opinion of where we stand right now with baseball? Obviously, we're talking, you and I are talking right after Christmas, just before the new year. When this episode comes out, it will be 2022. But the best question I can asked at this point is, where do you think we're going? Do you think we're going to have baseball in 2022? Do you think we're in the middle of a lockout? Do you think that this gets ended anytime soon? And kind of where's your opinion on where we stand right now?
They better, is all I know. They better work this thing out, because they're losing fans left and right. People are not going to the games like they used to. People are tired of all the politics of the game. People are tired of the length of the game. And now all of a sudden you're having another lockout. And, it hurt the game back in 94 when they were out for all that time. It hurt in 1981 when we went out for 50 something days. It's different now, some of the things that they're going for. And I listened to both sides of the argument, and I'm thinking, I can understand a little of both. But at one time, the players had just too much power. Then all of a sudden, the owners had too much power. Then the players got too much power. Right now, this looks to be just another power grab from the ownership, in my opinion. You can't complain about the money. I mean, I can see us now. We were griping too in 1975. I'm making $16,000 a year as a minimum. Now the minimums, they're going to jump it up to $600,000. That's a nice living, George. I don't care where you live.
Yes,
it's a nice living. And
play a game.
And now the average in the baseball is over 4 million. That's the average. So yeah, but you look at the things that they're doing for the minor league players today. You bring them in early, you feed them, you put them up, you exercise them, you get them in shape, and now they go out to play. The old days, get yourself in shape when you get here. Buy your own underwear and your own jock straps. You got to eat breakfast away from the ballpark and dinner away from the ballpark. Lord, today you can go to the ballpark and spend the night. They got all 3 meals. They got trainers there. They got televisions, computers, everything you ever want. Is that good? Well, I don't know, maybe. But I think it takes some of the hunger away from a lot of the guys too, because you're given so much early that once you get to the big leagues, it's better, obviously, but now you're fighting over length of time. One thing I do agree with, though, the players want is to cut that 6 years down to 5 years. I think where you are a part of the owners, and you can't go to free agency and you can't go to arbitration. 6 years when you're under contract. I mean, my second year, the minimum went from 16 to 19, so the Reds gave me the minimum again. So I had a pretty good year too. So the third year I go in and I'm going to ask for $25,000. I'm on 25. So I go in and Mr. Wagner says, what do you want this year? What's it going to take for you to play? $25,000. Oh, okay. 23,000. No. Mr. Wagner. I said, that's 25,000. $23,000 or go home. Now I'm third year in the big leagues. I got nothing. I got no agent. And so I just think it's a big mistake. I'm not a, whatever his name is, Manfred fan at all. I think what he's done, I think he's done more harm to the game of baseball in his short time than any commissioner that's ever been there. George, I do a lot of stuff with a lot of charities, And I'm all for that, and I'm all for helping. But when I go to a freaking baseball game, I don't want to sit there and listen to somebody's politics. I just left that. I want to go to the game and watch a game between two teams that are competing and playing as hard as they can, pulling for each other. I don't want to go there and listen to what you think about something else. If you want to do that somewhere, do it, but not at the ballpark. And right now, that's what we've got to in just about everything we do. So, yeah, I think if they don't heal this very quickly and this runs for any length of time, they're going to lose an unbelievable lot of their fan base.
Yeah. I tell you what, that is so dead on accurate. When I talk to other sports fans, and this is not just necessarily baseball related. I used to be a huge NBA fan, and I've quite frankly, I've started growing away from the NBA. I was a diehard Chicago Bulls fan when Jordan came into the league. I followed him through college, and same thing with football. I would kind of watch football on the occasional side, but what my biggest thing is look, not getting into politics of any kind, because listen, everybody has their own beliefs, and that's fine, whether I agree with them or whether I don't agree with them.
Exactly.
But what sports has always been in this country, and at least the people that I know that follow sports, is it's a almost a vacation away from their everyday life and their everyday jobs, right? It's their way of getting out and deconnecting to everything before they've got to plug back in. Now, if people want to talk about politics and want to talk about all those things, I am completely fine with it. And you know what? Even more today is even more fine with it. You don't need to have it out there, because guess what? Just like we're having this technology nowadays, the technology exists to get your point or your politics across. Between social media, between podcasting, between YouTube. I mean, there is no way that you cannot get your stuff that's out there. To me, I would just like to not see it around that individualized game. You having a game, go out there, you're a distraction. Okay, fine. Now people say, well, social media can be a distraction as well. I'd rather see it there than over here. So
yeah, but you're right. All the sports have got there.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where we are right now.
Yeah.
We're with that. And I just, your common fan, I think, I'm sick and tired of it, and then you start throwing the labels on the players and all of this. Just, I don't know. Michael Jordan had a good comment one time, speaking of him, as you were, when somebody asked him about politics, he says, Democrats and Republicans buy Nikes.
It's exactly right. It's one of the best comments I heard. I started laughing when you said that. I was like, but that's exactly right. At the end of the day, about being a person for change, and being, if you see something that you don't like, okay, fine, I get it. Then go do that away from the cameras. I have so much more respect for doing that away from the cameras and in front of something and going, oh, by the way, how'd you play today? Well, I played like crap, but I want to talk about this.
Yeah.
How does that have to do with that? So,
I never got away with that in New York.
well, no, but unfortunately, the media nowadays, has gotten a little stupid, if you will. But anyway, be that as it may. So now that we've got your opinion on the lockout and stuff, I want to definitely thank you for coming on the podcast. We definitely appreciate it. Love the fact that you were commissioner, but I don't want Hilly to watch this, because Hilly was my commissioner for the first 2 years, because you were doing Reds camp, and Hilly was a tremendous commissioner as well. But this was the first time I got to get you as a commissioner, and you were tremendous as well. So, but I don't want to take anything away from Hilly, because I'm big, but he's bigger. He's bigger.
He's not only bigger, but he's one of the funniest people I have ever met. I mean, Eric Hillman's who we're talking about. He is a talented man, and that just goes, as you said, George. Every year I go to camp. I mean, and I tell people, if the campers have as much fun as the pros do, then it's going to be a good camp. And I think you'll agree, we all have a blast.
Oh, every year I come back and I'm like, does it start getting tired? Does it start getting, okay, I'm going through years. It's the same feeling I have every time walking into that locker room. Walking
You're
by
hanging with the wrong people. If it's tired and boring, you need to change the people you're hanging out with down there.
That's it. As I walk by my cooler, as I like to call it, I go, "It's my cooler." I take all the beer out of that cooler. That's mine. And then
let me say one thing, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
This is when my respect for New York people has grown so much over the years. Because as you know, we do a lot of work for charities and we're helping our military families that all over the country. And
Yep.
This year, in 2 weeks of Mets Fantasy Camp for a charity called Hope for the Warriors, you guys raised $47,000. George, that is off the charts, incredible. And it just shows how big a heart that you New York folks have. I mean, I came up, I've had the pleasure of coming up and spending New Year's Eve underneath the ball because I've become good friends with some firemen up there who are dear friends. I can call up anybody from camp. They'll take me to a show. They'll take me to dinner. It's and you're right. It's a family week. And I'm just so honored. And, as I start getting older, I'm thinking, man, how many more years I got to do this? So I'm back in the gym again, trying to say, I'm getting ready now, so I'll be able to come back next year.
And that's the funny part, Doug, is like people that follow me on social media, they see me working out, they see me doing, all the stuff that I do. And they're like, what the why are you doing what you're doing? I'm like, because I got to be ready for camp in November the following year or January or whatever it is. I want to stay in shape. And, when you have goals and you want to, make sure that you're kind of staying at least to that level that you're expecting to, even though, as you get older, it gets more difficult. But, people are like, oh, you want to do whatever you want to do at camp. I'm like, no. Not a lot of people understand why I'm doing what I'm doing. Yeah. I'm like, I'm trying to stay in shape. So hopefully I can be in camp with my son when he's of age, it's 30 years, which he's 15 now. So I got to stay in shape for a good 15 years to make sure I can try to do this with him and actually enjoy it. Yeah. So those are my goals. But that's why I tell people, this is what I do. You have to have a why. But anyway,
that's a great goal though.
Yeah. So unless something tremendous happens with my son and he moves, takes his baseball career to another level. But anyway, so I got some rapid fire questions that I always like to ask.
Right.
So let me know. You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right, cool. So of course, the first thing I'm going to have to do is Cincinnati or New York.
You
can pass. New York. New York. That's a great answer. Very good answer. Although just so we can play this.
Cincinnati got me ready for New York because I got to play every day in New York. That's why you play this game.
Yeah. So I'll make sure I send a copy of this podcast to the Cincinnati Reds fantasy camp when you go there next week. Anyway,
thanks.
So okay. Shift or no shift?
Shift, of course.
Okay.
Shift. We've been shifting for years. Where you guys been? Did you not watch how they played Stargell and Kingman and Willie McCovey and all those guys? They've been shifting for years. Just learn to hit the ball the other. That amazes me. You're a good enough hitter that you can adjust to a 98-mile-an-hour fastball and hit it out of the park, but you're not good enough that you can't hit the ball the opposite way. Not buying it one bit.
I had this conversation with one of the guys the other day. I wasn't sure if it was Hojo or if it was Josh. And they were like, if you're going the other way, people were getting paid to hit balls out of the ballpark. I'm like, but wait a minute. With these drastic shifts, if you're going to hit the ball out of the ballpark, it's not hitting one of those 5 guys on the other side of the freaking field. What the hell's the difference? I'd rather give up the 1 run, or if you go the other way, then you're giving up a 3-run home run. I'm like, well, I'm an average guy. That's just me. But anyway.
All right. How about this? Yeah, but you talk about, you got the WAR and OPS and this, that, all these stats. There should be only one stat that counts, W or L.
That's it.
You won or you lost.
That's it.
I don't care what all that crap is in between. You win or you lose.
Yeah. clock on the pitcher or no clock? And I'm pretty sure
Yes.
Trax is going to listen to this episode and want to hear what you have to say.
Right, with the hypocrisy going on in baseball on how to make it faster and slower, clock ain't gonna do any good. So I say no clock.
Okay. Yeah.
To
me, that's
fix it.
to me,
Just fix it.
yeah.
Get the guy in the box. Get the guy in the box right here. I mean, if you want to fix things, let's start with, all right, walk-up music. As soon as the guy at the plate makes contact and puts the ball in play, start walking towards home plate. Don't sit there and wait. Take a few swings. Now they start your walk-up music. Now you start walking up to the plate and taking your time. There's so many ways. The reason I say no clock is because the hypocrisy of what they are doing in so many other parts of the game, the clock ain't going to help nothing.
Yeah. I mean, to me, when I was talking to Trax, one of the things I said was, a pitcher wants to make a hitter feel uncomfortable in the box, and the hitter wants to make the pitcher feel uncomfortable in standing on the mound. So it comes down to a battle of who's making who feel more uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Why would you take that away? That's the whole part of the game, for crying out loud.
And if you look, I mean, I love pitchers that work fast from a defensive point of view because it keeps me in the game.
Yep.
And even Trax will admit that he was slow, but he was slow, but he was also really good.
Yeah.
The guy that's slow and not very good is the one that you just want to go beat on the head with a bat. But I love to see the game go at a faster pace in every aspect of it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
DH or no DH?
No DH.
Baseball purist. I love it. That's
Yep.
me as well.
Yep.
So those are my main questions that I had for you today. So again, I definitely want to thank you for coming on the Gripe Session podcast. We definitely appreciate it. Hopefully I will see you before camp, hopefully at the reunion, if we ever find out when the reunion's going to be. I was breaking Doug's chops the other day. I go, hey, Doug, some of us got to book flights and, have a story for our wives that we can go down to Florida and kind of go from there. So he says, as soon as I know, you guys will know. So I'm like, okay. But hopefully we'll be able to see you at the reunion. And if not, next year, hopefully. So again, thanks for coming on.
My pleasure, George. Thanks. And one of the fun times for me at camp this year when we got to sit around the rain delay and have our little bull session, that's pretty special because that's, as you well know, we fill in the gray areas when we're there and have that trust in you guys. So thank you for being there. Thanks for making camp fun. And it's a pleasure being on your podcast.
I appreciate that. And as Mookie said, we talk about time. What's the right time? If we remember that conversation, that was, I start laughing every time I think about that conversation and where that went. So anyways, appreciate you, Doug.
You too, pal.
Thanks.
Thanks for listening to the Gripe Session. Please follow us on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram.